You mentioned that there were tears at home, like, the emotions were high as you were going through that difficult period. How did you deal with it? How did your family deal with your workload, things that you were going through?
I'm really fortunate. I have got a fantastic family. Like, my parents are still living and they connected in every day. How are you doing? Very supportive. I've got a great husband who actually just does everything now. Like, he cleans, he cooks, he just looks after the dog. It's just fantastic. You couldn't want anything more. So that was great. And in addition, I work with a great team of people. So whether it's my colleagues or whether it's my team, Shiyen, I could not do this without the team that I work with. And, we'd have a huddle every morning over this last year, 14 months, actually, we have a huddle every morning. And it's not a long huddle, but it's a huddle that some mornings we were very serious. Here's what we have to get done. And some mornings we would just sit back and have a bit of a laugh. And it wasn't that what we were dealing with was funny. It wasn't at all. But we needed to have that stress reducer, that opportunity to connect as people. And we really worked hard on trying to protect those few minutes that we had every day to be able to connect and be able to just give ourselves the support we needed to be able to keep going. There were days that I wondered if we were going to get out the other side of this. And now that we're going, now we're through 3 waves of it, I think that we understand that there's a rise to this, but there will be a fall to it as well. And we will get there. I'm really hopeful that we've been through the worst now and that we can start on that recovery piece, that piece about coming back and really getting our health system to work together like it has never worked together before.
And if you had to highlight one of the lowest points that you've experienced, either, in the past year or even previously before that, how you went about that and what you learned from it.
Well, a low point in the last year is probably the easiest for me. There was a weekend, it was probably about Easter weekend of 2020, when the long-term care homes were just starting to get into outbreaks. And what was happening was some of the long-term care homes they'd have a positive patient and the staff would just be so fearful they wouldn't come in for their shift. And we had that one Saturday and Sunday of Easter Sunday a year ago, we had homes where we didn't even know if we'd have any staff show up at 11 o'clock at night for their shift change. And that was very, very intense and very, very challenging for me personally, because I was very concerned about those people in those long-term care homes. I could really relate as though they were my parents or my grandparents. What would we do? And, I have a team that was really strong. We were still working together to try to get staff there. And we ended up with a team member who went to one of the homes that we just couldn't get anybody to go to. And she said, I'm close, I'm going to go. And she did. And it was kind of like the straw that it changed everything for us. There's people who are willing to help. And that was the piece. As soon as I have that, we could do it together. So the lesson really I learned from that, and I probably learned it years before as well, but it came home that night, is I didn't need to do it all myself. So as a leader, you don't need to do it yourself. You have a team around you, and they're there because they're amazing and they do great things. And that was really an important lesson for me that night.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, because often as a leader, you feel like it's lonely and you have to have all the answers, but that in fact is, not true, because it's the team along with you that is going to help you get there.
That's right. Yeah, you're not alone, but you are right. It can be lonely, especially when you have to make tough decisions. Not so much in the pandemic time, but before, if we had to make difficult decisions about cutting costs, nobody ever wants to do that. Like, it's not something I went into leadership and said, "Whoa, I'd really like to come in so I can say goodbye to people, and be their worst enemy." Like, you never want to do that, but sometimes those things you have to do.
Right.
And it does feel lonely some of those nights before you go to bed. You feel a bit lonely, but at the end of the day, it's the team that keeps us going.
Right. And how did you manage, when you had to fire someone or you had to let somebody go?
Yeah, it's never easy. It's never, ever easy. There has never been once that I've had to do it that it has been easy. I can say that with absolute assurances. One of the first times I had to do it as a new leader, I had a colleague who recognized that this was the first time I was going to have to do it. I came into the office that morning, and outside my door, my locked door, was this little vase with a rose in it. And they said, the day will go fine. You'll do fine. And it was just that piece. I thought, oh, that's fantastic. So I've tried to pay that forward a few times to people when they've seen it, because it's very difficult to the person you're impacting. But the person who's doing it also feels it. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't make it any, as the person doing the termination, it's in many ways easier. My paycheck continues to come in. For the person impacted, it's huge. It's big, but it weighs on both. It weighs on both sides. And so I try to rationalize in my head that this is something that's better for the corporation, whatever that corporation is, whether that's the hospital, whether it's a department, that this is something that maybe the board has decided that we need to do, and that it is my job to be able to do that and to try to do it in the most fair and honest way. Tried very much to be honest with everything I say and treat people with incredible respect and fairness.